Hey everyone, Dance the Knee Dark Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Crystal Castles record, Amnesty 1. This is the latest full-length LP from popular indie electronic duo Crystal Castles, the first album that's been released under this project's name since the departure of the duo's famed frontwoman Alice Glass. And since then she has been replaced by one Miss Edith Francis. Now the teaser tracks from this thing, honestly, didn't give me high hopes for the record. And even if Alice Glass was still working with Ethan Kath on this record, and I had heard no songs leading up to the release of this album, I would still be kind of skeptical because Crystal Castles' last album was easily their worst thus far. But dude, this barely cobbled together album failed to meet my very low expectations, as Crystal Castles is no longer creating the alternative and stylish electronic dance music that made them so popular in the late 2000s. There are a couple moments on this record that sound like faint rehashes of Crystal Castles songs that would have been decent if they had come out around 2008 or 2009, with Ethan composing some quirky but also kind of moody synthscapes, and of course these are topped with Edith Francis performing a completely charmless Alice Glass impression. An example of that would be on the song Char, but then we have cuts like Frail, for example, which has this banging, awesome house beat, really buzzing, dissonant, just sour synthesizers that are bright and siren-like, but on here, Edith sounds like Yolandi Visser of Die Antwoord, as she's kind of yelping in this very high pitch against the noisy instrumental. Ethan and Edith make it pretty clear from the get-go that they have no other plans for her than to just force her to live in Alice's shadow, despite the fact that her aggressive, yelpy, smudged, and distorted singing only brings a fraction of the excitement that Alice's did. From the sound of the vocals on this project, Ethan clearly feels like Alice was just a placeholder and didn't really have anything to do with the success of the duo and could just be easily replaced by anybody, but the results speak for themselves. That's really not the case. But not all of the issues on this record can be attributed to Edith. There are also a handful of tracks that end really abruptly, don't have much in terms of significant song structure, are really redundant, boring. The song Teach Her How to Hunt is a very drony and forgettable interlude that doesn't add anything to the track listing here, and the song Ornament is as forgettable as it is breezy. Now, when Ethan isn't trying to drill for oil in the same dry reservoirs that Crystal Castles have already just sucked out completely on previous records, he's doing things like throwing rattling trap hi-hats into his beats, which I will leave it up to you as to whether or not that's working. And then there are several cuts on here which feature these super distorted and overblown, just way too loud synth leads that are just trying way too hard to be edgy, sort of like something that would have gone over well in an industrial club in the late 90s, but just sounds kind of silly and out of place today. Talking about songs like Fleece and Sadist, for example. Unfortunately, there are just so many things working against the success of this record. Anemic song structures and lengths. This is the shortest Crystal Castles album to date. Lackluster lead vocals, lackluster song ideas, and occasionally just trying a little too hard to be edgy. There are only a couple instrumentals on this thing that I like, and a handful of tracks that I think Crystal Castles at least pulls together a decent aesthetic. At least Ethan can still produce a dance track that's kind of harsh and moody as well as physical, which will most likely be enough for fans of the duo who weren't into them for anything more than that anyway. While I do think there's gonna be a Crystal Castles diehard here and there who think this record is really great, I think I personally can say that this is Crystal Castles' worst album to date, and by a pretty noticeable margin. I'm feeling a strong 3 to a light 4 on this thing. Transition. And those are my complete thoughts on this new Crystal Castles record. Did you give this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best. You're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe. Please subscribe. And yeah, that's all. Also, don't cry if you hate my thoughts on this record. But you're welcome to respond. Tell me what you think about this album, which I asked you earlier. Now I'm asking you twice. Now you gotta do it. All right. So yeah, we're gonna leave it at that. Crystal Castles, Amnesty forever.